Take you back to our top stories. One of them, indeed, for this hour. eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila is still standing by at the ANC policy conference in Nasrec. And, of course, he's with Aviwe Mtila, who is KZN provincial secretary this morning. Aviwe, as we're talking, in fact, about the KZN conference that just wrapped up, it was very clear from the Taliban who would have taken the slate about their positioning on certain policy matters. And, of course, the huge resolution that will be discussed may not necessarily have been the topic of conversation, but now needing to be included in this policy conference is the one of the step-aside resolution, where even that matter in itself, the KZN slate said, you know what, we're very clear on this, that we want this thing completely scrapped. Going into this policy conference, I'm wondering where the agenda is and the thinking is at, especially when it comes to KZN's agenda and representation.
Certainly one of the provinces that are unwavering, one of three provinces when it comes to the step-aside resolution and it being scrapped. But of course, you understand this is the policy conference and decisions are then taken at the elective conference, which we're expecting in December. In fact, I want to catch up with the recently elected provincial secretary of KwaZulu-Natal, Aviwe Mtila, just to get a better understanding, Faith, on what they'll push for. Thank you for joining us at eNCA. Mdomkulu, but maybe give us an understanding of what you push for in this policy conference.
In this policy conference as KZN, we are very clear that we will push for policies that will change the lives of our people. For example, we would know that people of Gauteng, they've been complaining about the standard of living that is high, tolls that are costing them a lot. For example, an ordinary teacher who stays in Soweto, who works in Pretoria, spend almost 65% of his salary on transport. A cashier who stays in Orange Farm, who works in Mall of Africa, spend almost 75% of her salary on transport. Then the people of Gauteng can't afford an ordinary living. Now is coupled with a fuel price. The current leadership that is in office now, both in the state and in the ANC, when they were elected in 2017 and entered government in 2018, the fuel price was around 13 rand plus cents. Now it's 27. It has been doubled. It will be an injustice if this policy conference doesn't respond on those issues to say how do we make sure that we as the ANC, we decisively intervene on making sure that the standard of living is affordable. The middle strata can't afford, their cars are repossessed, their houses are repossessed, they can't pay municipal bills. The ANC must respond as a leader of government and a leader of society. And we are saying the ANC's failure to respond on these fundamental issues is because it is obsessed about the step aside. It's an internal issue. The step aside is an internal issue. It only affects ANC members. You can't have a government, a ruling party that is obsessed about what happens on its internal affairs. We need to respond on the issues. Then the ANC must be united, must be stabilized, so that it must work as a united force to respond on the issues of our people. For example, issues of water. People that don't have water. That's why in KZN we said our priorities will develop a clear master plan that will be costed, that will have milestones on how we respond on the issues of water in KwaZulu-Natal. Because we are saying in the 4-year term that we are elected, at least when we leave, 90 to 95% of the people of KwaZulu-Natal, they must have water in close proximity or in their yards. We must roll out electricity, we must stabilize road network, we must work with the stakeholders, religious leaders, we must intervene to the issue of the Zulu Kingdom, stabilize it, not because we want to gain votes. We are not worried about that. Is that it is an important institution to protect our culture, to protect our language, but to unite our people. It is the Zulu Kingdom in KZN that got only role to unite our people. Then we can't play with that institution. We must make sure that we stabilize that institution. As a ruling party, which lead government in KwaZulu-Natal, we must make sure that we intervene decisively. Then, I know that people, they say, we're obsessed about step aside. No, we are not obsessed about step aside. We are saying the standard of living is high. The ANC policy conference must resolve. Because if the president closes this policy conference on Sunday, he doesn't talk to our people about how are we going to do to make sure that we control, we intervene decisively on the fuel price. We intervene decisively on food prices and the standards of living, and have a clear resolution on e-tolls. I'm telling you, would have failed.
But a lot of people are saying that the policy conference itself is lip service, given that hardly any of the resolutions taken in 2017 have been implemented. Land expropriation without compensation, free higher education are just some that haven't been implemented. What would you say to those critics?
That's why at plenary yesterday, delegates were demanding an account of resolution that were taken at Nasrec 54th conference. How far have we gone? Because before we go to commission, delegates were demanding we can't go to commissions without knowing how far have we gone. Because we'll go to commission and demand for the speedily establishment of the state bank, only to find that a first branch will be opened in Senti. But we are not aware of those things. Fortunately and unfortunately, it was not allowed. We didn't get that report, but it's fine. As you are saying, a policy conference is a recommending body to the national conference. But that's how it is structured also. It's not structured like a national conference. A policy conference is not structured. In national conference, there's 90% scientific delegates from branches. I can tell you now, even if this policy conference doesn't live up to the expectations of our people on what we are raising, on issues of ethanol, issues of fuel, issues of food prices, everything, I can tell you, national conference will respond and will respond decisively. That one I can assure you.
Just lastly, that step-aside issue we have to touch on. Why is KwaZulu-Natal calling for step-aside to be scrapped, given that it's seen as holding leaders accountable and the ANC itself accountable, those that are found wanting?
What do you mean holding leaders accountable? It doesn't hold any leader accountable. Which leader has been held accountable by step aside? What has happened is that it consumed the ANC to fight amongst itself. Let me tell you, the ANC government, what it needs to do, the executive, the national executive, must build stability and effectiveness in the NPA, in the detectives, investigators. They must investigate you timelessly, put a report, charge you, send you to court. The NPA must be ready to go to court, and you are tried. If you are found guilty, then the ANC constitution comes in, Rule 25. Once you are found guilty in a court of law, in terms of the ANC constitution, you are found guilty and you are sentenced 12 months without an option of refile. Automatically, it's a gross misconduct. You will be charged by the ANC and you will be expelled. The constitution even makes a remedial action that if you are at that level, you will be expelled by the ANC. Of course, then it's a done issue. Because now they know that the NPA has no capacity. It charges terrorism in the Eastern Cape. The matter struck struck off the road. They charge terrorists again 3 weeks before conference because they think was stupid. And then the court again struck it off the road. They charge Ace with many charges. They dropped the charges to 3, nothing. They are not ready to prosecute to try case. They charged Zandile Gumente 4 years ago. They are not ready to proceed because it's just not on. But let me tell you what the people of South Africa are not aware of. If you allow the ruling party of any country to undermine the constitution, to undermine the rule of law, is that once they succeed that in their own internal party, they will spread that to other countries. What if the ANC in the national conference resolve that the electoral act be amended? Everybody that is charged, who's a public representative, step aside. It means all leaders of political parties will step aside. That's what it's that small. It must be stopped now. It's that small. You can see that now you are happy because it affects ANC alone. But a ruling party can't be allowed to undermine the rule of law, to undermine the constitution, which says an accused person is presumed innocent and the duty is on the accuser, which is the state, to prove the case in court.
Thank you very much. The Provincial Secretary of the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal, Aviwe Mtila, with